Well, no,
Yeah,
actually,
right.
actually, the city's gonna take it down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay. Well, so it's just kind of tag, here you go.
Well, here, yes, and no, take the money. Just take it.
Wow.
We were meeting with, I was talking to John earlier. When they start moving dirt, cause there's some trucks to do.
Sure.
But it won't take long. And they're gonna work fast.
The city that's actually gonna be doing the work or what?
Or the city won't prep the site to be up, because people buy that. It's just a little more expensive. Kinda like one of those Bosch.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's like a dishwasher.
Well, if you don't get it installed by a plumber, they don't
That's
warranty
right.
the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Right.
Just as, almost as.
No, we're back to a gallon instead of.
Oh, you are.
But now I'm starting to see home equity lines of credit. Because people's equity is higher, so hey, we're short on cash. We're all a little bit.
That makes sense.
That side of it's still fairly big, but yeah, the sales and purchases is definitely declined.
It has. What is that?
We're hovering around 6%.
Yeah, we're talking something like those young persons. 6%.
Yes, you're thinking 18.
Exactly, you were there. You were there too.
Yeah.
Now they think the end of the world is coming.
Trees were untouchable. That should have never happened.
Yeah.
Everybody's world should have purchased and refinanced.
All right, we'll get going. All right, it is 6 o'clock. We'll call the Sartell City Council meeting to order. First item on the business is Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Council, next item for tonight is the approval of the agenda. I'd look for a motion.
A motion?
We have a motion. Is there, excuse me, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Open forum, public comment. Do we have any? Have no one registered tonight. Next up is special presentations from the Lions Club.
Thank you, Mayor Fitzhugh and City Council, as well as all city staff. I am Stu Giffen, President and Secretary of the Sartell Lions, as well as the Inclusive Playground Project co-chair. And I represent 3 local Lions clubs: LaSalle Lions, St. Stephen Lions, and Sartell Lions. And our goal tonight is to formally present to the City of Sartell a financial commitment for the inclusive playground. I'd like to briefly recap that project. Lions Community Park is located directly across the street from where we are now. This park was created by the Sartell Lions Club in 2004, primarily driven by current Sartell Lion, Mike DeLuca.
And Woodstock attending.
Yes.
The current park was designed for those with mobility challenges. It features 2,300 feet of 10-foot wide paved walking paths with continuous handrails that serpentine among trees, grass, and the Watab Creek. The park was the recipient of a Lions matching grant back in 2005. The Sartell Lions consider this park as their signature project. Throughout the course of the year, we work on handrails and gardens and signage and buckthorn eradication. The Sartell Club began to gravitate toward improving the existing traditional playground in 2020. We saw room for improvement to mesh park amenities with a better playground to apply our Lions mission of serving our community needs. We did some playground research, and we had a very key meeting with several parents of special needs children, and it focused the club on an inclusive playground. An inclusive playground, as the pictures on the screens show, welcomes children and adults of all abilities to a play experience where everyone can interact and play together. In the summer of 2021, it became obvious to the Sartell Lions Club that greater connections, manpower, skills, and creativity were necessary to complete a project of this size. And at this time, 4 key moves were made. 2 other Lions clubs exist within Sartell St. Stephen's School District 748. They were contacted to partner. LaSalle Lions and St. Stephen Lions joined the project, and now the project had over 100 members and significantly more skills and connections and creativity. We also solicited a retired Boy Scout executive who lives in Sartell who has fundraising experience, Dave Trahey. Dave's contribution was significant. Thirdly, the Waters Church agreed to serve as the fiscal agent of this project. It was important as the Waters collected checks, issued timely reports, and will send tax-deductible donations receipts to donors. And fourthly, we applied for a $100,000 Lions Foundation grant. Turn the clock ahead. In December of 21, the playground was then designed. It was designed by 4 individuals. 2 of them were moms of special needs children, Carrie, mother of Daniel, and Emily, mother of Isabel. We also included a school district physical therapist from the special needs department, as well as the playground representative. The design is as you see there. The Lions grant application was submitted to the Lions district level in February of 22. The district approved the application and sent it on to the Lions International Foundation for review in January of 2023. Project organization and fundraising began in March of 22. Target was $340,000, of which $240,000 was to be raised locally and $100,000 grant was applied for via the Lions Foundation. We held numerous fundraising events, presentations, and communications during 2022. Communication with the city of Sartell was transparent and frequent. I promised Anna Gruber there would be no surprises. She wasn't going to wake up and say, who said what to whom? So we tried to have a single point of contact and live to our promises. The city of Sartell staff was very collaborative. From finance to publicity to park input, it was never an obstacle. They were open and positive. We had solid participation from the 3 clubs members over many events, but most importantly was the amazing generosity of so many to make this enhancement for the Sartell community a reality. The Sartell City Council approved the playground project on October 10th, 2022. In December of 22, local fundraising was complete. The Lions Foundation approved our grant application in January of 23, just last Friday. So, this new playground that you see on the monitors features a rubberized surface which permits strollers, walkers, wheelchairs, and the mobility challenged to access the play equipment. The playground includes ramps, decks, interactive play panels, a wheelchair direct accessible merry-go-round, and 2 zip lines. The 6,000 square foot rubberized surface features colors, shapes, hopscotch, and balancing games. And if you look close, you'll see that grayish part, the Watab Creek, flowing through the colored surface. So tonight, the Sartell Area Lions Clubs will present financial commitment to the city of Sartell for an inclusive playground at Lions Community Park. The Lions will fund $340,000 of the playground project. The city of Sartell will provide the remaining funding, installation, and maintain the new playground. Fundraising is ongoing for possible restrooms, miscellaneous expenses, and additional equipment. So at this time, the 3 area Lion Clubs wish to formally present to the City of Sartell the results of their fundraising efforts. The St. Stephen, LaSalle, and Sartell clubs wish to present to the city a check representing our financial commitment, and we wish to provide the financial security for the city to begin the implementation phase. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any commentary, feedback?
I can start. Thank you so much for the work that you've all done. I think this is going to be a tremendous opportunity for everyone to practice a range of skills and encourage active and independent play by all children. So thank you for your efforts in making this a reality.
Yeah, I'd say much the same. And like you mentioned from the start, having that single point of contact is always helpful in coming towards us, not just asking for help, but having an initiative behind it and a goal and a purpose always helps us in helping organizations like you guys or anyone else in the community. So thank you very much.
I would just say thank you as well. What a tremendous asset that the Lions Clubs are to each of our communities, and to see 3 of you come together and pull this off and bring the proactive funding and for us to add such a great amenity to the city is just awesome. So thank you. I know how much work that is, being part of other volunteer organizations. So a lot of work, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who spent a lot of hours that aren't standing up here as well, but thank you to all of you. So.
Yeah, I'll wrap it with, when this project came to council, it was very ambitious and a little bit awestruck of, wow, we could do this in our community. Albeit seemed a little aggressive. I think you guys have knocked it out of the park of surpassing that. And I know I've had a conversation with a couple of you in passing that this park really becomes a destination, not for Sartell, not for the school district, but certainly for the surrounding area cities. And, you know, I think as we look to the future, as a destination park, we're going to see people traveling here specifically for the offering. And how do we support that ongoing? And you talked about restrooms and continued support financially for this. And, you know, I look forward to working together in the future on that and seeing from a city side what we can do to bring this to bear. But thank you. Thank you so much for taking this from somewhat of a passive park to one heck of a gem right on Pinecone here. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, on
Excellent
behalf
work.
of all of us, you're very welcome.
Thanks. All right, council. Next item is the approval of city council minutes from our January 9th regular meeting, January 9th special meeting, and January 9th second special meeting. I'd take those as a full slate.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion to approve all 3 minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have consent agenda items. We have items A through G. Is there a motion to approve as stated, or one want to be pulled?
I'd like to pull 6D and 6F.
D as in dog,
Correct.
D and F. Are there any others? Seeing none, would look for a motion to approve A through G with the exception of D and F.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to approve items A through G with the exception of D and F. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Jed, we'll start with item D.
Yeah, I'm in support of this recommendation. I just wanted to add a contingency to that we obviously purchase the property first before we spend money on a phase 2. So I'd like to make a motion to approve with that contingency that we would purchase the property before we'd spend that money. Yeah.
If I
Yeah,
may,
go ahead.
Mayor, members of the council, completing the phase 2 would provide a benefit regardless of who owns the property. So the D grant that the city received would have had to have been applied for by the city anyways. So regardless of who owns the property, they would have been working together with the property owner. So to complete the phase two, I don't think really is contingent on who owns that property. It's a benefit either way. The city has already received the deed grant to pay for a majority of that phase two. So completely can wait to approve it if you would like to, but we'd also like to get moving on the process if possible.
So if somebody else was to purchase the property, would they have financial obligation to that phase two?
I think there could be some negotiation during the purchase of that property to help offset any costs that the city has already occurred, but the $50,000 grant that the city did get from deed, like I said, it would have been the city applying for that grant regardless.
Just trying to pull it up here quick. So by us completing it, it becomes a public document, correct? Meaning if our sale were to fall through, someone would be able to, future buyer of that parcel would be able to get phase two documentation without any cost. Essentially, we'd be donating the cost of phase two. There's a incentive to help it develop out, but
They likely would still complete their own phase two, but they would have access to these documents, which would help reduce that efforts on their part.
What's the timing of a phase two? Like, what is the time frame it takes to complete a phase two, and is there a timeline that we need to make to pay for it prior to purchase?
I'm just looking at the schedule here. Hold on one second.
Mayor, if I might just add while she's looking that up, I think, Jed, timeframe wise, I given the time it'll take to do the phase two and how close we are to scheduling that closing, I think it might be, like if we wanted to wait to actually get out there and start any of that, we could approve it tonight, like you said, with that contingency of, let's just make sure we've closed on it. I think that timing's gonna fall in line pretty close anyways. We do have the deed grant, and so it is something we're gonna wanna do regardless, because it improves the marketability. Most people, if they wanna purchase it, are gonna ask us for that phase two, but I think putting that contingency that we wait until we've actually closed on the property, I think we're gonna come within a couple weeks. Knock on wood, we've been anticipating that closing for a while, but I think, given the information that we had as of Friday of last week, I do think we're gonna come within
is there an
a couple
expiration on the 50,000 from the state?
I do think it has to be used within this next year. And so that deed funding has to be applied for by a public institution, so a private cannot apply for it. So that's where we would have to apply for it no matter what. And so sometimes what you'll see is developers will have us apply and then get the grant and then they'll cover the other part. But we've got time, I think, and
And is
it's
that
gonna be within a couple weeks, I think.
is that grant specifically for that parcel only?
Yes.
Is it transferable at all?
No,
A
it will be
different parcel?
specifically for that
For that
parcel.
parcel? Okay.
Yep. But I think we're gonna be in a pretty close timeline here, where I think we could approve with the contingency that we don't start any work until we've closed on the property. April, does that
Yeah,
seem close in timing?
And I was gonna ask, maybe I misinterpreted that was your original motion to just wait, not approve it tonight, but contingent on,
I would approve it contingent on the sale, right?
yeah,
So-
then I would agree, Anna.
Okay.
I misheard that. And to get back to your question on schedule, there's a 2-week work plan, which would be done in February. Full process, it would be mid-May to June for the environmental study to be completed. And then there's a wrap, but that's as development plans are kind of finalized and developed.
Any other questions on item D?
In the scenario that closing gets delayed, you said the deed funds have to be used this calendar year?
Yeah, so if closing were to be delayed to a point where we thought we were sacrificing those funds, we'd likely come back and ask for that contingency to be removed just to move forward with that phase two for marketability. But I think remain positive that we're within a couple weeks.
Okay.
Seeing no further questions, I would look for a motion on item D.
I would make a motion to move item D with the contingency that the money's not, or the phase 2 is not completed until purchase of the property.
And just for clarification, completed or initiated? I mean, once I guess I'm hearing you say don't spend money unless we own it.
Yeah, I just think that's a different decision, probably likely to be similar decision, but yeah, until we actually have the property signed and ready to go.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve item D with the addition contingent that we don't complete phase 2 until we have ownership, correct?
Correct.
There's a motion, is there a second to that? I'll second. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Item D carries. Item F.
Yeah, I pulled this one as well. Just had a quick question as to like, how was this decision made? And really, so it looks like we're moving $30,000 from pavilion allocation dollars to purchase a stripe painter. You know, just walk me through that decision and what impact that would have on the pavilion, just not knowing what work we were going to do on that pavilion in the first place. And then would we still do the additional remaining funds towards the pavilion, or where would those funds go to?
Yeah, with the reconstruction of lift station number 2 at Rotary Park, it would be really difficult for us to construct the pavilion this year, and it wasn't a high priority for us anyways on the budget this year, so we're going to push that back when funds become available. That actually comes from the street, the park fund, so when we have new developments throughout the city and we collect those parkland fees, that would fund the Rotary addition. So if we were to perform better than expected this year, or even within the couple of years, and have the funds available to fund the Rotary Park expansion, then I think we'd make a decision at that point to make that.
Okay. Any other questions on item F? Seeing none, would look for a motion on item F.
I'll move it.
We have item F move for approval as stated. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Item 7 under new business.
Mayor, members of the council, at our last council meeting, January 9th, Police Chief Jim Hughes publicly announced his retirement. So as you all know, after 32 years with the Sartell Police Department, on March 31st, he will officially be retiring. So we're sad to see him go, but excited for this next chapter and season of life for him. Our personnel committee met after his announcement of retirement and began planning the process for the succession planning for that. Currently, per our personnel policy, the position of a director level or higher requires an external search process. So attached in your packets is that search process and the timeline specific, and it is up on the screen as well. Probably one of the more important dates of note, both for council and publicly, is February 28th. We're intending for that day to be a day of finalist interviews almost all day, varying degrees, both with department heads, the police, public safety departments themselves, and then offering an open house type format for those finalist candidates to meet with the public as well. So we will come out with specific times in relation to the 28th once we know how many finalist candidates. But that date will be of note publicly, and just want to make sure that council is aware as well. We want to make sure to engage multiple different levels of the community in this search process. But tonight you would be formally accepting the retirement of Chief Jim Hughes, and then formally posting the job. The job description is in your packets. for the official recruitment process to kick off. Technically tonight, we'll get it posted publicly tomorrow. And then you can see the timeline from there. I would say it's probably aggressive to think that we would have somebody in place by the time March 31st rolls around for Chief Hughes' last day. So there will likely be an interim appointment until we can process through the background and psychological tests of the final chosen candidate upon a conditional offer. So just kind of put, a rough timeline there of May, could be sooner, and could definitely extend beyond that depending on notices for employment. So just wanted to try to lay out a timeline for everyone and make sure the public is aware of the process. There is an opportunity to go on our website and follow along with the process, and you can subscribe to updates. So anytime that we make a change and public announcement, it will be put on that page, which will then notify people accordingly via text or email.
Awesome. Council, any questions on the process set forth? Seeing none, would look for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to, I guess, twofold. One is accepting the retirement, and two is approving the job posting. We can take them buzz together if you're okay with it.
I'll approve Chief Hughes' resignation and the posting of the new chief position.
We have a motion to approve the retirement and posting of the role. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? One thing I would add quick just from Personnel Committee is love the dates and publishing this out as quickly as possible. I think the transparent manner in which we're going about it is great, and there's going to be significant feedback on all the different candidates, so it should set us up really well. So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Both of those carry. On to old business. We have 15th Street North Environmental Study.
Mayor, members of the council, for your consideration tonight is an agreement to complete the environmental assessments and permitting for the 15th Street North Corridor. 15th Street North Corridor has been a priority for the city to help traffic congestion on the west side of the community. The city completed a feasibility report in 2022, and that report identified these environmental assessments and permitting as the next step. It is a critical step in the process for making that roadway a reality for a number of reasons. One of them being that there are significant wetland impacts, and the project will cross multiple environmentally sensitive areas. So the permitting process is anticipated to take up to 2 years just with the different agency reviews and approvals. During that process, it could also impact a little what the project and alignment could potentially look like. So having those answers early on in the process is critical. It's also important for scoring well on different grant applications. And so by showing the commitment and starting this process now, it'll help set that project up for success in the near future. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the proposal in front of you this evening.
Council, what questions do we have on the 15th Street North proposal? I'll start with one. Talked about it taking 2 years to complete. How long is that study going to be good for? And we've talked about that in the past, but just reconfirming.
So the first phase, the environmental assessment documents, pretty much will take up all of 2023. As long as there's no significant changes in that area, those are good for quite a while. 2024 will start the permit process. All of those have a timeline with it. As long as you continue to work with those agencies to get those permits in place, that process will take however long it needs to get those approvals. Once that permit is approved, those are generally good for about 5 years. Once you have that permit in place, to get that permit extended or renewed, as long as nothing significantly has changes, is usually approved or accepted.
And a significant change would be of what caliber? A single-family home being built in the area or a 60-unit housing development?
It would, a significant development in that area, or change to environmental conditions because of that. A single-family home wouldn't necessarily be a significant change.
Okay.
When you're looking at these permit process, you're looking at the land use, future land use, existing land use. So a change in land use would probably be the most significant type of change.
Okay. Council, any other questions?
Does initiating this study help our chances at getting funding?
Significantly, for a couple of reasons. On grant applications, if you can show city commitment to the project, which by doing the feasibility study and getting these environmental assessments started shows a significant commitment from the city. This project was applied for federal funding and it made it through a second round. One of the multiple questions that came up was the status of the environmental permitting. So you'll score higher on those grant applications if this project is started and completed.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think I would have more of a comment than a question just for Rob. You know, as being new to council as well, I think this will be maybe laid out in our capital improvement kind of conversations or capital plan that we continue to talk about, but understanding other funding metrics as a part of this as we move forward of, you know, kind of laying out that medium to long-term plan would be very helpful, at least for me to understand, you know, where are these other dollars planning on coming from and having a better understanding of when does a project become where we're all in and where we spent too much to go backwards or you know, in setting up different grant applications and things like that, so.
With that, I'll look for a motion on the 15th Street North environmental study.
I'll make a motion to approve the 15th Street North environmental study.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That item carries. Item B under old business, lift station 1 surge tank plan approval and authorization to bid.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So in front of you is a request to accept plans and authorize us to bid a surge tank at the main lift station. So I'll give you a little bit of background. Lift station number 1 is the primary lift station in St. Cloud, in Sartell, that pumps all Sartell wastewater to St. Cloud. And over the last few years, we've had up to 3 breaks in that force main, which prompted investigation, testing, study, modeling, and what's going on in the force main. As the pumps are moving the water towards St. Cloud, that water has momentum. And as those pumps shut down, a significant back pressure vacuum is developed near the lift station that is really seriously stressing the pipe. So the project we have is to construct a surge tank. And what that provides is water that when those pumps shut down, that water in those tanks, which is wastewater, fills that void and reduces those stresses on the pipe. So it's not really a matter of when, or excuse me, it's not really a matter of if that force main will break again because of those stresses, it's when. So this project is going to prolong the life of that pipe. So today we're looking to get, like I said, authorization to advertise, accept the plans. So we would open bids probably, I think we got scheduled for the 21st of February, back to you about March 9th for consideration. So with that, questions?
Alex?
You had mentioned about when rather than if, looking down the road, is there other solutions that cuts out that when, or is that kind of just inevitable with?
We've looked at other solutions such as air relief valves, things like that to provide air in there. And through the modeling and in practice, it's not reduced those stresses. It's a problem that it will reoccur.
If you recall, Alex, we did that study, we ran that.
The European ball came over, right?
There you go, yeah. So this is some of the results of that, what we're finding.
question I would have, operationally is, are they shutting down intermittently, as best practice, or do we intentionally shut down the pumps, or what's causing us to shut down the pump? Cause I have to imagine from an uneducated guess is the sewage doesn't stop at any point in the day.
Well, it fills the tank, as the tank gets to a certain level, we pump it down. And when the
That's current practice?
yeah, pump
Okay.
shuts off, tank fills, pump out.
Okay.
You know, we have 4 pumps, 2 different chambers down there, so 2 pumps per chamber.
Okay.
So they alternate, so the pumps basically are running every 3 to 4 minutes. I think we're on about every 4 minutes, a pump's turning on, turning off. We pump 1.5 million gallons a day through there.
And so this additional tank would fill the void between the 3 to 4 minutes. Am I
Yeah,
understanding that correctly?
So the force main is roughly, well, we shortened it now, but it's roughly about 4 miles long, so you got all that water pumping out.
Yep.
As soon as them pumps shut off, all that surge is coming back, so that surge tank will equalize that pressure, so it won't come back with such a force.
Okay. Interesting. Council, any other questions? Still waiting on a video of what the European ball showed, but. Council would look for a motion on Lift Station 1 surge tank plan approval and authorization to bid.
I'll move.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Item 9, public hearing. We have 2 public hearings tonight. The first one is a conditional use permit for Selco Partnership.
Mayor, members of the council, before you is a conditional use permit application for Selco Partnership. Just some previous background. This conditional use permit was approved in 2018 for the same communications tower. The original conditional use permit did have an expiration of 2 years after the initial approval date. This current application is the same as previously. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this conditional use permit on January 10th. This is this permit would allow the construction of a telecommunications tower in a R1 residential district. As stated within the original permit, the reason that it did expire is that there was a condition in there that if there was no initiation of the actual construction of the tower after 2 years, it would expire. And after discussion with the applicant, they filed another conditional use permit. So this would allow the construction of that telecommunications tower along County Road 4. As you can see on the screen there, this property is currently zoned R1 single family residential and used for agricultural purposes. As stated within our zoning code, this is listed as a conditional use in R1. Along with meeting all the conditional use stipulations and findings of facts, a telecommunications tower requires supplemental information to be submitted as well, which was submitted to me by the applicant. And Rob, if you could go to the next page, please. As you can see here, there's tower setbacks that are listed within the zoning code that need to be met as well. There's 3 that are listed in there. They need to be set back 125% of the height of the tower from property lines. They would have to meet building accessory setbacks as well within the zone. And as stated in there, commercial towers need to be set back a minimum of 500 feet from schools or structures used as dwellings and a minimum of 300 feet from the property zone for residential use. As you can see there, they're listed the nearby structures in the current zoning. To the north, the property line is zoned R1, which shows the 595 feet. To further north, there is a property used as a dwelling, which is over 1,765 feet away. South, they are meeting that setback to the current church there. To the east, there's R1 single-family residential dwellings. This tower would be set back around 2,000 feet from that property line. And then to the west is our current City of Sartell property. And it is meeting the distance from County Road right away as well. This permit that was submitted was issued an extension notice on December 14th, just so staff and the applicant could get necessary information submitted to make sure that everything was put together and submitted and approved and be brought before you with all of those other requirements. This extension notice will actually expire on February 14th. So according to our state statute, if no motion was made today to approve or deny, that would automatically be approved as stated in our state statute. If there's any questions directed specific to the tower design and things like that, we do have the applicant here that is willing to answer those questions. As for zoning and other background information, I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Council, before I open the public hearing, are there any questions for staff? Alex?
Carrie, you had mentioned, I don't remember what the number was, about having the setback with residential areas. If this tower was to go in, is it grandfathered in where residential can go closer at that time then?
Yes, a change in the use of the property adjacent, if there would be construction of single-family residential, it would still meet their setback requirements because at the time it is meeting them right now. So any change in use of those surrounding properties would be grandfathered in this case due to meeting them currently.
Does this current agreement also have an expiration on it as well?
Yes, it has a 6-month expiration that's listed within the resolution that I have at your areas. If you would look at that, there are findings of fact that do have to be met to approve the conditional use permit. As stated in there, the findings of fact are explained for how this would meet those findings. Now, if this evening we decided that this would not be approved, we would have to put into writing on how these specific findings are not being met as well.
Jill?
Same question.
Okay. All right, with that, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to testify on the conditional use permit for Selco Partnership, please step forward. Step to the dais, please state your name and affiliate.
Good evening, Nathan Ward with the Grinnell Group, here representing Selco Partnership. Their business entity is obviously Verizon Wireless, and I am prepared to provide additional information or answer questions as you may ask.
Okay. Council, while Nathan is up, any questions?
What's led to the delay this, excuse me, what has led to the delay thus far, and are there plans within the immediate future to resurrect this, or?
Indeed there are, and Jed, that's a great question. Verizon Wireless, as with most of the major carriers, work to get new macro cell sites into what we call the pipeline. And from the inception or design, when Verizon or whomever decides we need a new facility here, it starts the investigation process. So folks like myself will then go out to that general area. Typical search radius in, semi-rural, almost becoming urban environment is typically a half a mile to a mile radius from the spot that they would really like to broadcast and receive from. So our first step is to look to see if there are existing structures that we could utilize, be those existing communications towers or water tanks or buildings on which we could place the antennas. From the design start to having a site acquired, leased, and permitted generally takes between 9 and 15 months. So they continue to have these sites, again, put into a pipeline. Once they're permitted, ready to go, Then they look at their budget and which sites are most important. You know, which ones have gotten to the finish line. It makes more sense to build this one than it may make to build this one. So that pipeline in scheduling out to the future is typically a 12 to, from the time that it's permitted, they tend to construct between 12 and 24 months after everything is ready to go. So we would have met that initial 2-year deadline for the conditional or special use permit. As we all know, right about that time is when the pandemic hit. So it was not business as usual for Verizon or anybody else at that particular point in time. So they pretty much stopped spending money of any significance at that particular point in time. The permit has expired. Therefore, we are back asking for that same permission to build the same facility that we had intended to do back in 2018.
And as a follow-up to that, this conditional use permit will offer you 180 days or 6 months.
Yes.
But I'm hearing the timeline is a lot longer for you to do that. How is that gonna work?
I will be expressing to Verizon Wireless that they have that limitation and they're gonna need to move it up.
When Verizon finds the need for a new tower, is it, you hit on a little bit, but is it based off complaints that come in or distance from the next tower? Or why do they determine kind of the location?
All of those things are a factor. Every individual cell site that they operate is dependent on those that surround it. This particular cell site is not as much as a coverage site because there is cell phone service for Verizon in that part of Sartell. It becomes more of a capacity issue as more and more development comes into the area. Each cell site can only handle a finite number of phone calls, data traffic, et cetera. So this one is a combination of both to improve service in the area and accommodate additional needs in the future for additional Verizon subscribers.
And roughly how much area does a tower cover?
That's another very good question. What we call in-building coverage, so inside a home or residence or business, this cell site at roughly 150 feet tall, about a 4 to 6 mile range for good solid in-building coverage. What we call in-car or vehicle coverage is probably 6 to 8 miles. Okay. And then if you're outside, 8 to 10 miles, and that is also affected by topography, terrain, tree cover. I think the biggest thing to recognize is that the tower could send signal much further than that. The limitation is how far your phone can send a signal back to the cell site.
Okay. Thank you.
And maybe building off that one as well. So this is additive to our community's cell coverage, not a build this tower and then remove another one?
That is correct.
Okay.
This is to supplement their network and has nothing to do or no intention to remove another site because this one is going in. Okay. That is correct. Another nice advantage, the tower is built to accommodate additional users. So if AT&T or Sprint or T-Mobile or whomever should decide that they need to improve their service in this general area, the tower is built and designed to accommodate their equipment as well.
Sure. Any other questions for Nathan? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify, please step forward. Third and final call. Anyone wishing to testify, please step forward. All right, we will close the public hearing. One follow-up is feedback from Planning Commission. If you could maybe summarize some of that for us.
When this was proposed and presented to Planning Commission, they felt that it was meeting all the findings of fact as stated within our code. So they determined that it did meet all those findings and they approved it with just few clarification questions on distances from properties. We did add in another exhibit to show the distance to a residential zone property instead of just to a current dwelling. Besides that, there was no other further questions from them.
Great, thank you. Council, any questions before I ask for a motion? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion on the conditional use permit.
I'll move it.
There's a motion to approve the conditional use permit. Is there a second? I'll second. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. The next public hearing tonight is for a variance at 1801 Amber Avenue South.
Mayor and members of the council, before you is a variance application, as you stated, for 1801 Amber Avenue South. We may know this as the Regional Medical Arts Campus Plat 3 that was approved this past fall as well. Site plans have been submitted for Solutions Behavioral Healthcare Professionals, and we're actively in the construction phase of that with a few outstanding comments and questions from engineering and this as well. Planning Commission recommended approval of this variance request on January 10th with 2 conditions they proposed that are stated within the resolution. One being a stipulation that where the accessory building is located, that they would not be able to use that for signage and advertisement, just to protect the area and surrounding properties, as well as an item stating that the fence would match the primary structure of the building as well. So in our city code, right now, we restrict accessory building locations to the side or rear property lines due to the topography of the site. As you can see at your desk is the elevations and the site plan in front of you, just to show that it would be very difficult for them to relocate the accessory structure to the rear or side property due to large elevation changes and the layout of the property, as well as the required in stormwater agreements and requirements. So they are requesting to have it in that location, as well as the fence height. In our city code restricts it in the front yard to 4 feet. They are proposing a 6-foot fence for safety and privacy reasons of the intended use of the building. I did leave out earlier that Planning Commission did request that the fenced-in area be moved and be at the same setback as the garage. So right now on the site plan, you see that it is further in front of the garage. They requested that it be moved to the 30-foot front yard setback of the property. With that, the applicant is here that can answer questions on specific programming needs and why the fenced-in area needs to be in that location. And as you can see, the topography would limit those fenced-in area from the rear property just due to the elevation change as well. With that, I'll take any questions, and anyone that would direct questions towards Solutions Behavioral, they're here and ready to answer those questions in specifics.
Council, any questions before we open the public hearing?
Carrie, as drawn, what is the setback of the eastern side of that fenced area to the sidewalk and road?
I believe right now it's around 19 feet. I could be wrong. Elissa, was that correct?
So it's approximately 19.5 feet from the street.
And there is sidewalk on that.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So what does that put it practically from the back of sidewalk? 10 feet?
What was that? Sorry.
Practically speaking, to Councilmember Smith's question, are we talking 10 to 11 feet from back of sidewalk
Correct.
to fence? Okay. Council, any other questions before we open the public hearing? We'll open the public hearing on the variance for 1801 Amber Avenue South. Please step to the podium, state your name and affiliation.
Yes, my name's Joel Bakken. I'm the Executive Director at Solutions Behavioral Healthcare Professionals. We go by Solutions. I'm here to speak a little bit about why the importance of having that fenced-in area be extended as much as we can. One of our programming elements with Solutions is working with kids with autism. As you know, we try to do early intervention, so we have 3, 4, or 5-year-olds mostly. Also, we go up to 21. But that play area is going to be essential for us to have it as large as we possibly can. We plan on having 32 children in that area, and we are mandated by our licensure to have a privacy fence around all of our area, and so we need to have that, and that's why the 6-foot area is required for the privacy piece, why we had to go be up above that as well. That's one component of our program. It basically covered that whole north side of our building there. And on a side note, we're very excited to come here to Sartell, and we are been in this area for about over 12 years, I think, right now in the St. Cloud. We're currently officed in Wade Park, and so we're really excited about having that be a part of your community. And we already have 25 kids, with about 25 kids on a waiting list, so we'll be very full at the start of our programming.
Thank you.
And Mayor, members of the council, Rob, if you could go to the next screen. Sorry, it'll be the third screen. Elissa did provide, due to the issues with the programming needs, Elissa did provide a way to ensure that sight lines would be met and ensure the safety of the children within the programming as well. So that is one of the options she did propose instead of the 30-foot front yard setback, which would make the fence in line with the accessory building as well. So up on the screen is that option she did present to us as well after the Planning Commission comments.
And I just wanted to add one more comment as well, is that I understood from the Planning Commission comments is that the sightline visibility to any vehicles that are egressing out of that north approach, there would be a visibility issue there. And so as a preferred option for us to try to maintain as much of that outdoor space that's enclosed as possible, we would even be willing to make that just an ingress one-way only, and then have the south approach be the 2-way approach so that we don't have any vehicles exiting that location.
And sorry, would you state your name and affiliation for the record?
Yes, Elissa Novotny, Dovetail Development, representing Solutions Behavioral Professionals.
Thank you. Council, any questions or commentary on that? Staff, is there any reason we wouldn't support or desire a one-way in, one-way out as a means for that?
We have no opposition to that.
Thanks. Well put.
One point of clarification.
Maybe we do.
Sorry. Carrie and I were just talking about, so looking at the sidewalk placement, to get back to Jill's question, where the fence lies right now would be within about 2 feet of the existing sidewalk. And you can see, so the red thick line is the proposed fence. There's that 27 kind of number right there is directly on top of the sidewalk. So just want to make clarification that the sidewalk would be within 2 feet roughly of the fence.
And so we've been through a couple large snowstorms. How do we anticipate that working? Other than not well?
I would propose this be a private sidewalk in front of their business, and they would have to maintain that sidewalk.
And as current policy, if it's just a sidewalk, concrete sidewalk, it would be such today, correct?
Today, correct.
Yeah.
There's also green space between the sidewalk and the back of curb, so there's,
Some snow storage from the
Correct.
street.
Yep.
But the sidewalk will be an issue for a private sidewalk.
Okay. Any other questions?
Do you have concerns with, a sidewalk within 2 feet of, where you have small children playing and working on activities and so forth?
Not actually, the location we like because it's fairly remote. There's not a lot of traffic going through there right now, and we're excited. It's, even though it's in the medical area, that road does not seem to be that busy. And I haven't seen many people walk by that area actually either. So I'm not foreseeing this to be a big issue for us. But thank you for your question. It's good thought.
I know I know public safety, fire and police have approved, the layout. I guess a couple items from my side, just the practical, heaven forbid there's a fire and a fire truck needs to be placed where you see it on the screen. I think you're showing a hose would stretch immediately adjacent to the building through the fenced in area. I think you had, there you go. Thank you. Is there assurance that nothing would be, no type of equipment would be put into the bubble area that shows where the 69-foot, 2-inch hose reach would be?
Yes, correct. That is actually supposed to be striped as a fire truck access area only, not as a parking.
Within the fenced area? Or you're saying where the fire truck's placed?
Well, and with the fenced area, that's required to be a cleared sidewalk.
Okay.
So we'd move the sidewalk right up next to the building. So there's a 5-foot path that's contiguous all the way through with a gate on each side.
Okay. Council, any other questions?
Carrie, that 72-foot stretch of fence there, if we were to push that back, is that where you run into the terrain issues in the elevation?
Correct. As you can see, on one of the plans on your desk, you can see in the rear property that there is quite a bit of elevation change, rather dramatically in the rear property. So, putting a fence back there would not meet the intent of the program and could not work out.
And the other location behind that fence to the north is stormwater management pond.
Okay.
The image you showed previously with the right-hand corner kind of shaved off to provide greater visibility, so you're saying that that is an option for consideration for council?
That would be the option if we maintained ingress and egress from the north. Because
Got it.
otherwise, it's not really creating a value, any added value if it's a one-way into the property.
Right, okay.
So Jill, to answer your question, more as stated within the current resolution in front of you tonight, it does have that condition of needing to be in that 30-foot front yard setback, if that would be something that we would want to go away from and would approve her solution to the fenced-in area. We would just ask that we approve it contingent upon that plan and meeting that plan instead of what's stated within the resolution currently.
Mm-hmm. Can you go back to that slide? And so is that easternmost side, is that parallel to the garage or no? Or horizontally in line with the garage? Or no, it's still further out towards the road?
Correct. If it was in line with the garage, it would be at that dashed line. That would be at the
Okay.
setback of the accessory building currently.
Okay. Council, can you think of any other issues with a sidewalk that close to?
Chief Kudrowski, do you find it beneficial to have that second entrance for fire purposes?
So this site has actually been a challenge right from the get-go on this. In the fire code side of things, access, egress, that drives all the fire code. We definitely don't want to make any more changes. It's kind of throughout the process here. We've proposed things. There's areas of the fire code that are black and white, and then there's areas that are gray, and that the fire code official has some opportunity to work with. And it's kind of throughout this process, this has been, the fire code official actually pulled me in from the beginning because there were so many areas that were just, because of the size of the footprint on this site, we've kind of had to keep adjusting, working as hard as we can to see the community development portion of it. We do meet code on everything, but we don't want to back down any further than what we have to on any of this stuff at this point. So any access, whether, we can't really shrink anything at this point, so.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, we wouldn't have that entrance by the fence, but to Chief Kudrowski's point there, I think it is beneficial. So I would say we would at least have that corner cut back for the safety of the sidewalk and those exiting that parking lot there, be my opinion.
Okay. Any other testimony tonight? Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Third and final call. Anyone wishing to testify? Okay. We'll close the public hearing on this. Council discussion on the 45-degree cut on the fence line for visibility or one way in and out.
I jumped ahead there and commenting before finishing public comment. I tend to agree with Alex in terms of, I think having more space next to the sidewalk will be beneficial in the future, maybe even for reasons we can't anticipate right now, would be my thought.
I also tend to agree with Alex's assessment.
Sounds good. We have consensus on the adjusting the fence. Any other questions for staff, developer, engineer before we ask for a motion? Seeing none, I would look for a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to approve the plans as shown with the corner of the fence cut back as shown.
We have a motion. Does that satisfy what you'll need?
Can we just clarify that this would also cover the accessory structure as well, which is in the variance request? But that's sufficient.
Along with the accessory building.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
I would just add that we're thankful to have you in the community and obviously just want to make sure that your spaces sets you guys up for success, so.
Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Department reports. First up is administration.
Mayor, members of the council, you have my report in front of you. This was an exciting one to do. I love to finish things on my list. And with the rebrand and finishing out the website, we were able to check off many of these items that were kind of in that 90% phase. So we finished the design of SharePoint with the new brand. We were able to list all of the items of any excess city property. You will notice a post on our social media later this week, which is the sale of some miscellaneous properties that we've had around here, things like phones. I'm trying to think of, John has a few items from Public Works as well. We also were able to finish electronic versions of the welcome packets, all of the website upgrades. Front lobby digital player will go live based off of our website in the next week or so, which is a touch screen. Our rebrand efforts, kind of closing out the design phase, and now it'll obviously kick off the implementation phase throughout Sartell, which will be a phased approach. So awesome to see some of those bigger items be crossed off the list and be replaced with new bigger items.
Thank you. Any questions for administration? Awesome, thanks. Finance.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just wanted to make a couple comments on the unrealized loss in the portfolio report. So the loss is consistent with most other cities in this current rate environment. And second being, it only becomes realized if we actually sell our fixed income investments, but we don't intend to unless there were something unexpected to happen within the city. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of peace of mind on the unrealized loss. Let me know if you have any additional questions.
Any questions for finance? Thank you. Thanks for the overview on the unrealized loss. Next up is community development.
Mayor and members of the council, in your packet is my monthly report. Just to go over a few things, this past year we issued 3,500 building permits, as well as completed over 3,200 building inspections this year. So we had a very busy year and anticipate that going into this next year as well.
Fantastic. Any questions for community development? Thank you. City commission updates.
None at this time.
City council committee updates, miscellaneous business. Jill.
Nothing at this time.
Alex. Jed.
Nothing tonight, other than we had a great meeting prior on the finance committee.
Yeah, our finance committee met before council as our first meeting as a committee, and working through with finance and administration on just policy updates. So those will be forthcoming, likely to a workshop for further council discussion, but fun to sink our teeth into the financial side of our city for an hour and a half and feel like we were there for 10. So a lot more to go.
And only get through about a quarter of the agenda.
Yes. I don't have anything further tonight either. I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.